poverty penalty. If you can buy cold chicken with SNAP benefits, why can't you buy a hot rotisserie chicken with those same SNAP benefits? Oh yeah, we're getting into it. And Congress is discussing it. Right now in the United States, the temperature of the chicken matters if you're going to be able to apply any sort of social benefits to it to determine if it is eligible for food assistance. Is cold chicken more food than hot chicken? Is hot chicken not more food than cold chicken? What do you say to the chickens running around in the yard? Food systems aren't just about calories, they're about infrastructure to get calories. You and Beyonce don't have the same amount of hours in the day. Lower income households are expected to perform far more labor to access basic needs. And that is really the tension that's underneath this bill and why we need to look at it more closely. Systems designed for 1980s America do not fit 2026 America. That's a fun fact. And that goes far beyond SNAP. To week 21 of my 52 Bills series. Congress is debating right now whether or not people should be able to use their SNAP benefits on hot rotisserie chicken. America has completely changed the way that it eats, even since 2008 when this original bill about the definition of food was written. Now we have grocery delivery, Uber Eats, DoorDash, prepared meals, food, grab and go, meal delivery services, prepared meals, ready to eat meals. On top of that, there are people working multiple jobs, taking whatever form of transportation they can manage, and rising housing insecurity. Seniors living alone, aging alone, millions of people without stable kitchens. Yet parts of SNAP policy still operate like every household has time, transportation, refrigeration, cookware, and a 4-range stovetop with an oven. Maybe these people have never lived in small apartments with inside big cities before. Because let me tell you, not every place you might be able to afford to rent from or live from is going to have a full kitchen. Somehow, though, we are still demanding that people who need the most benefit from society have to have the most operational tools available to them to use those benefits. And that is what we're going to be talking about within this Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act. The average American spends more money on food away from home now than food cooked at home. Food delivery exploded, prepared meals exploded, grab and go grocery systems exploded because it is a challenge and time consuming to make food for yourself or for multiple people within the type of time frame that we have set up for ourselves today. Now you can be online all of the time and you can be at your job remotely all of the time. Or you've got to get up earlier, you've got 3 jobs to go to. We have a system where making food that seems like food is more accessible is actually more difficult to make consistently because we don't have standard food eating times anymore. There is no 9 to 5 in the office anymore. With tech explosion and work from home and global systems, people can be working around the clock. There's not a dedicated time when we go home, we make dinner, we eat dinner, we clean up dinner, and we get ready for the next day. You know, I was just in Digital Democracy Project and I was scrolling because sometimes I just do that for fun, you know, I just like look around at what's in here and I'm like, yada, yada, 2026. Okay, scrolling through Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act. Let me click on that. Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act. Okay, nope, I read it correctly. Okay. Is this real? It's real. It's real, 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 real. And you can vote on it too. So get into Digital Democracy Project. It's free for you to use. Just go to digitaldemocracyproject.org and you're going to go to bills over on the left-hand side. You're going to be able to see all kinds of super fun things that Congress is talking about right now, including hot rotisserie chicken being eligible for SNAP benefits. And then you can pop into the map, see who else has been voting on this and what their votes are indicating. You can see the bill status, bill text, and you can actually go vote on this bill. You can see pros and cons for the bill, some that are already created, the ones that we might not have talked about in the video yet. Come in here and you can voice your opinion. So voting on this bill is very easy. You can also send this link to your senator and say, hey, I want or I don't want the Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act to be passed by the Senate. You are my senator, I'm your boss, and that is what a Digital Democracy Project allows you to do. See bills in real time, investigate what's going on within them, and then get in contact with your representatives. SNAP policy, though, still draws a hard line around hot prepared food. And if this is unfamiliar to you, it was unfamiliar to me too. So let's get into it together. What we're going to be breaking down is what this bill actually does. Why is hot food restricted from SNAP? How modern food systems have changed, and whether or not public policy is kept up. So pour a cup with me and let's sip in. Right, today we are covering Senate Bill 4367. It was introduced in April of this year, 2026. It's literally called the Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act. Before anybody laughs this off as Congress debating chicken, which they are, this has some very interesting system conversations underneath it. The bill, tiny, just like a chicken, literally changing how we decide what type of benefits people on SNAP can receive. So very massive impact. We're going to read the bill and talk about how this impacts poverty, food excess, modern labor, grocery system, and the assumptions that we build into public policy. Getting on the basics. SNAP. We've heard a lot about this in the news the last year and a half because of HR 1. A lot of misunderstanding about what tax benefits go towards SNAP versus anything else. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. A lot of people still call it food stamps, but it actually operates mostly through EBT cards, not a stamp you receive in the mail anymore. Things have changed with technology. According to the USDA data, SNAP serves about 41.7 million Americans per month. And the food program spent roughly $99.8 billion in fiscal year 2024. So before you say, oh, that's way too much money to be spending on SNAP, we're going to get into who can actually qualify for SNAP, and then maybe you'll have some other questions going forward, because how do we have that many people in America able to qualify for SNAP benefits and needing this much assistance every single month if we are the wealthiest country on our globe? USDA also reports that about 1 in 4 Americans participates in at least one federal nutrition assistance program during a typical year. Even though SNAP exists to help low-income households buy food, not every type of food is eligible. Under current SNAP policy, benefits generally cannot be used for hot prepared foods, restaurant meals, foods intended for immediate consumption. So if you're hungry and you finally got the SNAP benefits on your EBT card and you finally have a moment where you're not at work and you've gotten to the grocery store and you're starving, you can't use those SNAP benefits for a hot meal immediately. You have to buy cold things and then go back to your home, and then you can make something and then you can eat. And I just want us to put ourselves in this position real quick of how often do you stop on your way from work to home or home to work where you haven't had a meal yet, or you only had a quick snack and you're starving, or picking the kids up from school. This is a fun one. So kids getting out of school and they haven't eaten in hours, and maybe they didn't even eat very well because of what was fed at the school, and they're starving. And do you make them wait till they get home? Or do you bring a snack? Or do you stop like everybody else at Chick-fil-A and get them a snack that's hot and already prepared, so that way you're not having to also prepare the food at the same time that you're picking them up, at the same time that you still have to respond to emails, at the same time that you need to get them back home to do their homework before they have a event for the evening, and then get them back and back in bed and then up the next day. And this wild cycle that seems to suck every bit of energy out of every parent I've ever met. Under current SNAP policy, the USDA guidance specifically says hot foods are not considered eligible food staples for SNAP retailer eligibility purposes. These examples that you cannot use SNAP for: soup, pizza, fried chicken, roast chicken, coffee. But cold prepared foods can still be eligible for SNAP. USDA specifically lists things like sandwiches, fruit cups, salads. Help me understand. A cold deli sandwich is SNAP eligible, but a hot deli sandwich is not SNAP eligible. Cold rotisserie chicken, SNAP eligible. Hot rotisserie chicken, not SNAP eligible. And this is something we need to debate in Congress. Why is it here? Why is it like this? What is this from? Where is this from? Food and Nutrition Act of 2008. The memorandum defines heated foods, hot foods, and cold prepared foods in Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, retailer eligibility determinations. Only staple food products are counted toward a firm's eligibility to participate in SNAP. Heated foods, hot foods, and cold prepared foods are not considered staple foods and are not counted when determining if a firm meets criterion A or criterion B to be eligible to participate in SNAP as an authorized retailer food store. However, heated foods, hot foods, and cold prepared foods are counted when determining if a firm is a restaurant. If more than 50% of what a firm sells are heated foods, hot foods, and or cold prepared foods, then that firm is considered a restaurant. Other than the states that operate restaurant meals programs, restaurants are not eligible for SNAP authorization as retail food stores. Heated foods, hot foods, and cold prepared foods are not considered foods intended for home preparation and consumption for retailer eligibility determinations, regardless of if the retailer intends for food to be prepared or consumed by the SNAP participant in their home or off-site, or the intent of the SNAP participant to prepare or consume the food purchased at home or off-site. For example, a cold prepared sandwich or salad, while eligible to be purchased with SNAP benefits, would not be considered a staple food item when determining if a firm is eligible to participate in SNAP. Likewise, a product that is heated or cooked before or after purchase would not be considered a food staple item for retailer eligibility purposes. The Food and Nutrition Service has sole authority in determining if any food item the firm sells is a staple food intended for home preparation and consumption. Heated foods include foods cooked or heated on site by the retailer before or after purchase, regardless of whether heating is provided for free or at cost. When foods are heated by the retailer after purchase, this is sometimes referred to as the you buy, we fry business model. However, foods cooked or heated by any method, baked, grilled. Examples of heated foods include, but are not limited to, pizza, chicken, seafood. Hot foods includes any food product that is hot at the point of sale, regardless of who cooks and heats it. Coffee, tea, soup, roast or fried chicken, and pizza. Income eligibility standards. October 1st, 2025 to September 30th of 2026. Net income eligibility standards. If your household is of one and you make $1,305 or less, you are eligible for SNAP. If you're a household of four and you're making $2,680 per month or less, you are eligible for SNAP. That's your take-home pay. We have gross monthly income eligibility, so before taxes, because let's still take out those taxes. Everybody should pay.
If you're not a billionaire.
So a household of one, $1,696 a month, you can be eligible for SNAP. Household of four, if you're bringing in $3,483 a month or less, you can be eligible for SNAP. It'd be helpful to put that into perspective on how little people are able to bring in and still have SNAP benefits. Why is this a rule, hot food, cold food situation? Historically, this rule maybe made sense in the context that it was maybe created in. SNAP was originally designed around grocery purchasing. We didn't have hot prepared meals and food delivery at the time where this was created and written. We didn't have grocery stores that were selling sushi and pizzas. This was purely go to a grocery store and purchase some food. The assumption was people buy ingredients, people cook at home, prepared foods cost more, so being able to get more for your buck, basically, is what this was designed around. Restaurant meals were luxuries then and not as convenient as they are today. In the 1970s, all the way up through the 2000s, that distinction was a lot cleaner. However, as we know from our very lives today, if you're watching this in 2026 when it's created or beyond, modern food systems have changed drastically. The line between grocery store pickup for food and restaurant differs in service alone, not necessarily in what you can get there. According to the USDA economic data, food prepared away from home spending has grown enormously over the last few decades. It now represents roughly half of food spending in the United States. That includes restaurants, prepared grocery meals, takeout, delivery, cafeterias, convenience foods, and especially after COVID, after our whole world changed, food delivery exploded. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart, prepared meal kits. You've got that Factor going on over there. InstaFresh. You've got Instacart. You have fresh meals, grab and go grocery selections. Modern grocery stores function like partial restaurants. You can walk into almost any major grocery store now. You'll see sushi containers, hot bars, salad bars, pizza, rotisserie chicken, soups, prepared meals, deli sandwiches, and heat and eat containers. And there are more and more partnerships of those types of meals happening all of the time. So this is something that we see more of, not less of, as convenience in making food, smaller kitchens, less places to store things continues to be where we find ourselves as Americans. Our work patterns changed drastically. Commuting longer, multiple jobs, gig working, caregiving, aging, raising kids alone, and dealing with unstable housing costs. So the assumption that every household has time, energy, stable refrigeration, cookware, transportation, and kitchen access does not match the reality anymore, especially if you're bringing in less than $1,500 a month. We should talk about the cost for fast food, where before a McDonald's dollar menu was something that you'd be able to eat off of. That is not the same price anymore. Inflation has gone way up, and with tariffs, food costs more than ever. One other thing to be very considerate about when we talk about SNAP and stay out of the emotionality that can come with SNAP is we're not talking about people never cooking or only being so convenient that they can run in and out and grab a chicken and use their SNAP benefits that way. Cooking at home, we know, can save money, improve nutrition, create family structure, and stretch food budgets. That is absolutely true. Policy conversations become more useful when we stop pretending that every household has an identical circumstance or kitchen setup. Senior citizens with arthritis can find it very hard to do a whole lot of pan heavy lifting. A parent working two jobs might not have the time to do food prep in the middle plus pick up the kids. A person living in a motel because they're in temporary housing is not going to have a full kitchen. A college student in temporary housing is not going to have anything but a hot plate. Someone unhoused might not be able to heat anything up, and someone recovering from surgery knows just how painful it is to stand up for long periods of time and how convenient the microwave or food delivery can be. If we each take time in our brains to think about circumstances throughout life that we have relied heavily on food preparation, someone else bringing us hot food, or using a microwave to just be able to get out the door, that is what we need to be thinking about in this situation too. All of these different household examples experience food access very differently. And we are not even talking about at the moment the types of food that someone's able to actually consume and the time to consume it. That's something else. What we find with reviewing these bills is that public systems either acknowledge those realities or they create a lot more friction against them. So let's talk about the rotisserie chicken. Going to congress.gov, Senate Bill 4367, Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act. Let's get in here and read the bill specifically. To amend the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 to modify the definition of food. Because as I've said before, if it's not legally written down and has been signed into law, it does not have a definition when it comes to the reality of law and policy in our country. Doesn't matter if it's common sense. It must be legally written down and be able to be pointed back to in our United States Code. April 21st, 2026. This bill was introduced and was read twice and then referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry. A bill to amend the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 to modify the definition of food, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Short title, this act may be cited as the Hot Rotisserie Chicken Act. Section 2, SNAP eligible food. Section 3K1 of the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008, Act means it's a law, which is 7 U.S.C. Code 2012 K1, is amended by inserting hot rotisserie chicken and before those authorized, by striking clauses and inserting paragraphs, and by striking of this subsection. That's it. That's all that's in this bill. And so let's go to our USC code. Section 3K1, food means any food or food product for home consumption except alcoholic beverages, tobacco, hot foods, or hot food products ready for immediate consumption other than those authorized pursuant to clauses 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9 of this subsection. That is the definition of food that we have in this USC code. We see also in the code, staple foods do not include accessory food items such as coffee, tea, cocoa, carbonated and uncarbonated drinks, candy, condiments, and spices. So enjoy that plain chicken. That's the whitest thing I've read. White people made this law. And that's how you know there's only been a lot of white people in Congress. That's it. That's the whole bill. Have you guys been to Costco though? And I mean, most of the people who are working maybe for these SNAP benefits would not be getting a hot rotisserie chicken at Costco, because to go to Costco, you have to have a membership at Costco. So there's additional barriers to entry to even get in that door, much less then buy a $4.99 chicken. Rotisserie chicken is relatively affordable. It's high protein, immediately usable, can be used for multiple meals. It's already seasoned. People turn one rotisserie chicken into taco, soup, salads, sandwiches, casseroles, meal prep. For a lot of households, it's more economical than fast food. It removes the labor of cooking a chicken. Time is one of our most valuable resources, given that we can't make any more of it. Even if someone was to have more money, having more time is likely still valuable until you have enough money where you can buy time. Energy is a resource. Being able to choose what you're going to spend your time on, spend that energy on, being able to choose if you're going to use the energy for turning on the stove and the lights in the kitchen, and then having the energy to use it for transportation. And right now, gas prices per gallon cost more than a rotisserie chicken. Here are some things that SNAP is assuming within their basic structure. SNAP is assuming you can store food and you have containers to store food at your location. SNAP is also assuming you can refrigerate food. SNAP is assuming you can transport groceries and prepare meals, that you have cookware, you have electricity in your home, you have stable housing, and you have time. For millions of Americans, one or more of these assumptions is unstable. It is not correct, or it doesn't exist. And that doesn't mean that SNAP is evil, and that doesn't mean that someone not having those things makes them bad or irresponsible. People's lives shift and change over the years for various different reasons, some within and some without their control. It does mean most of the systems that we see that were in policy and passed were built around a different version of American life than what the population is living now, and how we need to make sure our policies keep up and go forward instead of hitching us to a past that doesn't exist anymore. Let's talk about the legitimate concerns of adding hot rotisserie chicken into SNAP eligibility, because of course there are. Because of course there always are. One concern is cost. That is number one every single time. When we talk about who opposes this, it's something to do with money. It's always something to do with money. Prepared hot foods are often more expensive than raw ingredients. There's a concern that allowing broader hot food eligibility could reduce purchasing efficiency, could increase overall SNAP spending, or gradually expand SNAP into restaurant-style purchasing. There is also concern around mission creep of SNAP, as it was originally written. Once you say hot rotisserie chicken is allowed, people are going to then ask, well, what about soup? Why not hot sandwiches? Why not prepared meals? Shouldn't grocery store hot bars be included? Those are fair questions. If we're going to revise the policy a little, should we revise the policy a lot? Or we don't revise it at all? Or is it all of a sudden a new policy? These are legitimate questions that we want to spend time thinking through and pushing our legislators to make decisions on. They make decisions by hearing from we the people. So you thinking about what it should be and telling your legislator that's what you think is a very valuable use of your time. Some states do have a thing called restaurant meals program. They allow certain SNAP recipients, like elderly individuals, disabled individuals, unhoused individuals, to purchase prepared meals at participating restaurants because they already know it's much harder for them to make a meal in their current circumstances. That is not what this debate is about, nor what's in this bill. The bigger thing being highlighted here, where we need to bring our calculated curiosity to the table, is how we increasingly outsource labor. Food prep, delivery, transportation, shopping, scheduling. All of these things are services things. And as I talked about last week, if we're shifting taxes to be higher on services and goods, that means people buying things with SNAP would have higher taxes to pay on these things too. The modern economy is built more and more so around services because we continue to build it towards convenience because households are stretched too thin to try to keep up with the inflation and stagnant wages that we have today. Wealthier Americans can navigate this constantly. They have no problem being able to reach a higher demand of work because they can do things with convenience. They can send out their laundry. They can hire a cleaner for their house. They can hire a nanny or a babysitter. They can hire someone to pick up the kids, take the kids to their next thing. They can hire a chef or they can do something with meal delivery, grocery delivery. They can do subscription meals, personal shoppers, convenience systems because they have money so they can buy back more time. You and the average millionaire do not have the same amount of dollars in the day. They have systems that allow them more time. If you're still doing the dishes for an hour a day, that is an hour that you're not able to use on making money, being in a job, spending time with your friends, or meal prepping because you're doing the dishes. A bigger phenomenon in America, especially whenever you come from some falsehoods of if you don't work, you don't eat, and making sure that being poor is punished by requiring more time, logistics, transportation, more paperwork, and more energy. If you had to apply to SNAP, you have to be able to figure out how to apply to SNAP. Go through all of those systems, turn in all the paperwork, keep that stuff up to date, being able to show the labor that you are doing to make some money that you might need so then you can be eligible for this thing. That's all extra time. That's all extra time. Someone who's making enough of a livable wage where they don't have to apply to SNAP gets to save all of that time. People on SNAP aren't people that are unemployed. The majority of people on SNAP are employed and they are paid far less wages than their dignity deserves. We see this often with employees of Walmart, Amazon, big corporations that make a ton of money and who do not pay their employees enough time to access the benefits that they could be getting. If you're living in a place where you're only making less than $2,000 a month, you're probably riding multiple buses, visiting different stores, stacking your coupons, you're doing as much food prep as possible, you're bulk cooking, and then you're trying to figure out how do you refrigerate it and keep this available so you can afford to eat tomorrow whenever you have to go to work and be gone for 14 hours a day. So if the conversation stays around cost as to why we shouldn't do hot food, then we're pretty much telling the system that we should optimize purely for the lowest food cost, which I think is still tuna, canned tuna. I mean, in college, I did have a killer canned tuna and ramen recipe, and I am not afraid to break that puppy out at any time. What we're also witnessing is the USDA data shows that food insecurity remains significant in the United States. And this was before this last year. This was before tariffs, rising gas prices, wars with other countries. The USDA reported food insecurity rose 13.5% in 2023. And it doesn't mean that you have zero food. That's like a common misnomer, is that food insecurity means you have zero food available. Most of the time it means it's unstable access, inconsistent meals, low quality meals, inability to prepare food consistently, lack of storage for your food, and disruptions to eating patterns. One of the strongest arguments in favor of revisiting these rules is maybe more simply the modern grocery stores are no longer functioning as purely grocery stores. They function as hybrid food systems. The current SNAP framework still draws a line around what was built in years past and what is in existence today. I haven't met someone yet who only lives off of prepared food. Right? Like there are still times where people make their own food, even if they have the money and chefs around to make food for them. There's a lot of times they're still making their own food. We shouldn't get confused that this bill is all of a sudden saying everybody should always have hot prepared food. Policy should reevaluate the assumptions that it was built around, especially when we see labor markets change, housing changes, food systems change, transportation changes, and technology changes. Tiny policy distinctions often reveal huge structural assumptions and show us ginormous gaps that we could be bridging differently. What counts as food assistance? That's something we should spend some time on. If you were in a position where you all of a sudden became food insecure, what systems would you hope would be there for you? Let's make sure those are in a policy where other people can access them as well. This bill may or may not pass. Larger conversation around it is something that we could maintain, because America has changed how it eats, how it works, how it shops, how it survives. And our public systems are stuck and they are not adapting to modern life fast enough. Why are we only now talking about hot rotisserie chicken? It's 2026. Those things have been around for a hot minute. Millions of people are just trying to survive. According to the data, 41.7 million Americans per month are just trying to survive. As you know, this conversation is and is not about hot rotisserie chicken. It's about the policy quietly encoding assumptions on how Americans live their everyday life and which Americans are being considered in that time. Eventually, public systems are going to have to decide whether they are designed around idealized households or real ones. Thank you for taking a sip with me. I'll see you in the channel.